I chose the movie Edge of 17, or The Edge of 17, a lifespan psychology study of adolescence by Chelsea Organis. So a brief overview of the movie. This is a story of a high school junior named Nadine. She grew up close to her dad, and he died suddenly when she was 12. He died in a car accident. He had a sudden heart attack while she was in the car. They don't go into detail about it. They just fast forward 4 years until she is about to turn 17. But throughout the entire movie, she is 16. So, an awkward teen. She is struggling with having an all-star football playing popular brother, and his name was, or is, Darian. She also has one friend. She has one best friend named Krista, her only friend, who starts dating her older brother. And Nadine felt really hurt and alone, even though they were not trying to shut her out. They wanted to include her, with their activities, going to the movies and stuff. But she felt betrayed by her best friend. Nadine ends up meeting a new student, a fellow classmate named Erwin, who she ends up becoming close with, and then in the end, they end up start dating. Nadine also self-reflects with help from a teacher, played by Woody Harrelson, and this is her favorite teacher, and she's always bugging him and nagging him and running into the classroom and talking about her problems, but he's always willing to listen. He just sits there and listens. And then she starts to accept that she isn't the center of the universe, quote unquote, and forgives her best friend and brother near the end. So, physical traits. Nadine is in the adolescence physicality stage. She is 16 years old, so she's past the menarche stage, or her first menstruation. She should now be getting her periods regularly. During the movie, she confesses random love to a stranger. She steals her mom's car, and she acts erratic. The limbic system in her brain is still developing, and it's developing before the prefrontal cortex is finished developing. The prefrontal cortex is in charge of decision making because it is not fully developed, and her dopamine, or the feel-good receptor chemical, is very high. Therefore, she acts more impulsive. You see more impulsive traits in teenagers. The serotonin, a calming chemical in the brain. Nadine has a hard time regulating her impulses, especially her anger, her impulsive behavior, and jealousy over her brother dating her best friend. So she has low serotonin, and the prefrontal cortex that makes her good decision making is still developing. So she's still trying to figure things out at this point. That's her and the teacher. Cognitive traits. At this stage, Nadine's ego and superego are more developed. The superego is the moral conscious. The ego is the realistic part that mediates the desires of the id and superego. The id is the primitive and instinctual part of the mind. This part houses sexual and aggressive drives and any hidden memories. And this is all based off of Freud's theory of self. Nadine has a favorite teacher, who I spoke about, played by Woody Harrelson, and this is who she vents to, and he, quote unquote, teaches her that she is not the center of the universe. Everything is about her in this movie. She doesn't understand why her best friend kind of just ditched her. She doesn't understand why her brother is better than her. She doesn't understand a lot. So he's slowly, at first, he starts just sitting and listening to her because she has nobody to sit with at lunch anymore because of her best friend going to sit with the brother. Even though they do invite her, she turns them down during lunchtime. So instead, she eats alone with the teacher. So he starts out listening, and then he ends up slowly opening up, and she starts opening up. So, social and interpersonal relationships. Nadine starts processing her emotions using secondary process thinking. This helps with judgment, planning, problem solving, and systematic thinking. This helps her to meet the external demands of the environment that she's in, which would be high school, and the internal demands of her instincts in rational, effective ways. So as she starts talking to this teacher, she starts realizing, she starts problem solving, and her judgment becomes better and stuff. She meets the new boy, Erwin, and he ends up really liking her. And she doesn't recognize this at first because she's so into her own world and what is going on in her own world. So she has no clue that he actually likes her until the end. Nadine figures out she can make friends, but she was standing in her own way. She realizes her mistakes after her brother looks out for her, and she realizes he is not an all-star, but struggles with their father's early death as well. He opens up to her about how he struggles with depression, and he's upset, and life isn't easy for him either. And he has a lot of expectations he puts on himself to be the man of the house. She forgives her best friend Krista and brother in the end, and she feels secure in her world now as she's growing up once again. This will change again and again as she gets older, but for now in the movie she's absolutely fine. And to the right, on the top right, is a picture of her and Erwin, and to the bottom is this would be her brother and the best friend on the left. So she realizes that she's not the center of the universe. People around her are also struggling. She's not the only one struggling. And so this was the conclusion. I chose this movie because I knew it had to do with adolescence and growing up as a teenager. And I can relate to Nadine a lot growing up, being kind of the very quiet, kind of nerdy girl who had her own style. And in doing research, I learned things about my own adolescence that I still had not resolved or understood, and this actually helped a lot. This is a very confusing time for adolescents because they are learning to handle their emotions in the environment that they were born into, and they're also struggling with their outside environment and their social relationships and hormones and everything else. Adolescence is also a very important time in life because you are learning to handle things like an adult and to process your emotions. So, like I said, she will continue to experience this over and over again throughout her life. But at the end of the movie, she ends up going out with her brother and her best friend to have a good time. I think they go to the movies or a diner, and she ends up dating Erwin, so everything works out. And this is her at the end, and she's just herself and happy, and that was it. So I really like the movie. I recommend it. It's about an hour and 20 minutes, and it's cute. It's called The Edge of 17.